Okay, and I was in the last group with the supports that are needed, supports and training that are needed by providers. So we came up with basically 5 big areas of things that we think need to be addressed in some sort of action step. The first one is to have a clear and consistent vision message. That one of the things we talked about is, given the current services upheaval in the state, it seems actually like a good time to put out a new and consistent message so that everybody's sort of getting the same picture. The second thing is, obviously, shared decision-making tools are important, but we identified that particularly having some very easy-to-use tools that people can use right now without any sort of complicated training, something that's sort of obvious and instant, and then in addition to develop some more technologically oriented tools later that maybe could be integrated with an electronic health record. It's important that any tools do not duplicate effort, that if you're going to work on this particular thing around shared decision making, it doesn't mean that you then have to do the same thing again when you do the service plan, the same thing again when you do something else. So to make that as efficient as possible. And it's important to attend to cultural and linguistic issues in developing and using any tools that may not be equally appealing to different groups of people. So vision tools, the third one is training. The usual kinds of training are needed. People need attention to change their attitudes. They need information about shared decision making. They need to learn new skills about how to use it. But we also were talking about the importance of having there be some sort of new methods. And we're not entirely clear what those new methods are, but to certainly be creative about new methods of getting information out to people. We talked about the idea of academic detailing that's used to change physician prescribing practice, which we don't know a whole lot about, but it basically involves kind of individualized attention to changing the behavior of the practitioner. We also talked about the importance, Rick, you mentioned that academic pre-service programs that the training people get before they get into the field needs to be different. Then the fourth one was administrative support, the importance of attending to organizational culture, policy, having supervision that's on board, having there be incentives and accountability within the service system. And then the last thing we thought about that actually would be important support for providers in learning shared decision making is to have educated consumer demand. So we were talking about the idea of sort of direct to consumer marketing of shared decision making and giving people access to tools maybe through the RLCs or other mechanisms where people could do some of this work on their own and then come in with their decisions and their opinions to meet with providers and service planners.
That's the last group, all right.
Yeah.
So, Mary Ellen, let's give our final words. I'm going to let you take
Firstly, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you for being very active listeners this morning and for being very vigorous participants this afternoon. I mean, clearly from what we've just heard, these were very rich discussions, and looking forward to working with John and CQI and putting together the white paper. I want to remind you that there will be on John's website and hopefully a link to ours. I'll be talking about Shanabi, our communications person, about a link to the DMH website about the shared decision making conference, so you can get materials about it as it progresses. You know, one of the things that Rick said that kind of caught my attention about our group was that clinicians need to come down from the high bench of the gods. And I was thinking about that as I was sitting there listening, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if they sort of leaned over and reached out a little, and the consumers, with the help of peer support, peer specialists actually came up to that high bench that has so many God seats and took a seat. And then we could have shared decision making as a kind of divine collaboration. Because really, it's not just a intellectual experience. I think for both people involved, it's a spiritual experience. So that's my final thought for today. And I'm going to turn it over to John. Again, thank you very, very much.